Welcome back. Early in the show, we spoke to Ezra Klein about a new Vox.com article entitled Hillary Clinton's Legal Career is Haunting Her. As a young lawyer, Hillary Clinton defended a 41-year-old man accused of raping a 12-year-old girl. Hillary was ultimately able to get her client a plea deal. She pointed out in an interview last week that she was simply doing her job as an attorney.
I asked to be relieved of that responsibility, but I was not, and I had a professional duty to represent my client to the best of my ability, which I did. When you're a lawyer, you often don't have the choice as to who you will represent, and by the very nature of criminal law, there will be those who you represent that you don't approve of, but at least in our system, you have an obligation, and once I was appointed, I fulfilled that obligation.
But at the time of the interview decades ago, Clinton said, quote, "The prosecutor called me a few years ago. He said he had a guy who had been accused of rape, and the guy wanted a woman lawyer. Would I do a favor for him?" Interesting story. Joe?
Well, yeah, and it's certainly troubling, too. Not just because of what happened so many years ago, but because, Mark Halpern, because of what happened last week on this tortured book tour that continues. First of all, a couple of corrections from a couple of hours ago. Ezra Klein said that the girl was 15 years old. She was not. She was 12 years old. Secondly, Hillary Clinton, we ran that clip where the suggestion was she was court-appointed. She had no choice but to take this. Very clearly, her own words from the Times said that she did it as a favor for a friend. This accused child rapist said he wanted a woman defending him, obviously to be more sympathetic, and Hillary Clinton chose to do this. This completely changes the conversation, and, you know, in that position, you and I both know there are a lot of female lawyers that would say, no, I won't take that case, and furthermore, I'm sure they wouldn't brag about getting this child rapist
Plea deal.
A good plea deal where he only had to spend 2 months in jail. Where she said she knew, he also suggested that she knew he was lying because he passed a polygraph test. This is really troubling, Mark, on many layers.
Well, look, on the bragging part, I think a charitable reading of how she says what she says is more about her talking about kind of the vagaries and injustices of the legal system. I think that's a possible read of that. On the other thing, as I just tweeted, you know, she's right. Everyone every defendant's entitled to counsel, but not every lawyer has to take every case that a friend asks them to take as a favor. And I think that, again, as I said before, the biggest implication of this for me in terms of presidential politics is she's going to have a lot of things from her past scrutinized that have never come up before. And on this case, I think, as Mika suggested before, some women, some men have questions about some of the decisions she's made in her life related to gender, in her personal life, professional life, not about her public advocacy.
But Mark, let's strip this down. We know what she said last week. We have tape of her last week saying something that does not appear to be truthful. When you compare her words of last week to what she said at the time, she wasn't court-appointed. She did this as a favor for a friend. So we can make all the judgments of the position that she was in 30 years ago and what lawyers are supposed to do and the constitutional right for everybody to get, you know, adequate representation. But we can compare what she said 30 years ago at the time with what she said last week. And what she said last week does not appear to be truthful, does it?
Based on the facts as we know them now, based on what others have reported, what she's giving now are what in Arkansas some people would call at a different era slick answers. And I think it doesn't serve her well. If she remembers what happened and she's got a story to tell, if this is going to keep coming up, she needs to tell it. And as I said, there are going to be other cases like this, and I just don't think it serves her well if she wants to preserve her political viability as a presidential candidate to give anything but fully truthful, well-researched, well-thought-through answers, which this does not appear to be.
And by the way, this is not based on third parties. These are her own words lined up next to each other.
Yep.
At the time of the defense and now, her words now don't square up. Mika, obviously, this points to a bigger problem.
It does.
But let's move on. Let's move on to business.
I think we will for now.